Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fellas YouTube channel. My name is Cameron Lawrence, and today we are talking the top 5 must-draft running backs for the 2023 fantasy football season. And no, I am not just going to feed you the top 5 running backs. I'm actually going to give you players to help you win your league that you can take at all different stages of your draft. First guy we're going to talk about is Joe Mixon. He is a guy I have been pounding the table for ever since we started the Fellas about 2.5 years ago. He is on one of the best offenses in the NFL, and he has been top 10 at his position 4 of the last 5 seasons and has had at least 270 touches in each of those seasons. Only season he didn't do so was in 2020 when he only played 6 games. So obviously last season, everyone was worried. His efficiency was down under 4 yards per carry, numbers inflated by that 55-point game. But I do want to calm those nerves a little bit. He was a top 24 running back in 10 out of 15 games, and in half of his games last season, or just under half, I guess, 7 out of the 15 games, he was a top 12 RB. But yes, like I said before, the efficiency did decline, but there are still bright spots for Joe Mixon. There's reasons why I like him. The first, he's going off the board at running back 17. What an amazing value for a guy 4 of the last 5 seasons has been a top 10 running back. First thing, last season, this gets me the most excited about Joe Mixon right now, is we saw a career high in targets. We have seen with a healthy Joe Burrow that he has seen at least 40 receptions in each of the last 2 years. Last year, he saw 60. So we know that he's going to continue to get that volume to give him a floor that we didn't really see in the earlier Joe Mixon. That is the first thing. Second thing, the Bengals did nothing this year. I think they did less than nothing because Chase Brown is a downgrade from Samaje Perine to take carries away from Joe Mixon. This tells me 2 things. Number 1, Joe Mixon's the guy, no matter what, he's not losing carries. Number 2, all this worry about suspension, Bengals aren't worried about it. I don't feel like we should be either, especially after last season, we saw Alvin Kamara have video evidence of him beating someone up. And he's still not getting suspended till this year, so I'm not too worried about Mixon missing time. He is locked into guaranteed touches. He'll catch passes, and he's in an offense that's going to score a lot of touchdowns. There's just nothing not to like about Joe Mixon at his current price tag of running back 17. If you were trying to take him running back 10, would understand. Running back 17, back of the 4th, maybe even beginning of the 5th, you could grab him. That is a phenomenal spot and an amazing value. Someone you should be drafting everywhere. Next is the rookie. Not that rookie. This rookie, Jamir Gibbs. If you have followed us at all, if you've watched our podcasts, if you've watched our TikToks, if you've watched my personal TikToks, CamelFFF, I'll plug that, you know that Jamir Gibbs is one of my favorite players this season. If you looked at our draft guide, got him as a top 12 running back right now. I think I'm still too low on him. Gibbs, yes, he is a little bit of a smaller back. We'll start with the downside. He's just under 200 pounds. They do have David Montgomery, who's going to, steal touchdowns, who's going to take carries in this backfield. Doesn't sound like a great situation until we keep these couple of things in mind. First is the fact that it is okay if Monty has more touchdowns. It's okay if Monty has more carries because that doesn't mean that Gibbs can't finish top 12. In fact, in 2017, 2 different rookies, Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey, finished top 10 despite not leading their team in carries, and CMC was 3rd on his team. Cam Newton also had more carries than him. James White finished top 7 in 2018 despite not leading his team, and Austin Eckler did the same where he was top 4 in 2019. And then we saw Swift in 2021, top 10 in fantasy points per game despite having less carries than Jamal Williams. Tony Pollard last year finished top 10 despite splitting with Zeke, having considerably less carries than him. Also, we need to factor in the draft capital. So not only can he succeed being the secondary pass-catching back, but he was also taken top 12 in the draft. Each of the last 6 players drafted top 12. Trent Richardson, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley were all top 10 backs their rookie season. Proving once again that draft capital matters, guys. It does. We can't get around that. They took him top 12. They're going to use him top 12. We saw it with these last 6 guys. And unlike Bijan, where you've taken him at the running back 3, he's going at the running back 14 right now. So now that we've established historical context, we can talk about Gibbs as a player himself. Last season at Bama, he had over 6 yards per carry, averaged just under 4 receptions a game, and had 114 scrimmage yards a game. So right there, we're looking, this is a guy in college averaging at least 15 fantasy points per game, and then he was averaging about a touchdown per game, 21 fantasy points per game in college. That's pretty good. Now he's stepping into DeAndre Swift's role from last year, and despite Swift averaging less than 40% of snaps, this team did not like Swift. They like Gibbs. They proved it by where they took him. Swift was on pace for 125 rush attempts and 85 targets. He didn't hit it because of injury, but that was what he was on pace for. And every player to hit that since 2010 has finished as 2017 has finished as a top 10 back. There's just so much pointing to this guy being top 10. The talent is there. The situation is there. The historical context is there that you would be silly to pass up on him in the middle of the 3rd round. So you should be drafting Jamir Gibbs. The next guy we're going to talk about, this one might feel obvious. It's Tony Pollard, right? He's going as the running back 9 right now. Everybody knows to draft him. But I'm the lowest of all the fellas, and I have him at running back 9. Tyler and Lucas have him in their top 4. Fellas Draft Guide, shameless plug again. The reason I have him lower is just because I want to temper my expectations for his first time leading a backfield. Me tempering my expectations is having him at his current ADP. That should tell you all you need to know about his ceiling. Tyler and Lucas have him top 3 or 4. They think he could potentially be a running back 1 overall. Last season, Pollard put up 1,000 rushing yards on less than 200 carries, 40 receptions on 55 targets, and 12 total touchdowns. And did I mention, I think I did, that Zeke was there. And last season, Zeke had a total of 248 touches. He is now gone. I can promise you this season that Malik Davis and Ronald Jones, who is suspended right now, are not going to total even 150 touches combined. This leaves Pollard with close to 300 potential touches when you factor in the missing touches and touches he had last season. On top of all of this, he has a new OC, and his head coach, who he's had for a little while, Mike McCarthy, are both establish the run kind of guys. They want to establish the run. They want you running the ball. Tony Pollard is going to see so many carries. He's on the franchise tag. They're going to try to run the wheels off of him, and he's going to get that volume. And then we factor in that he was so insanely efficient last year. I almost said inefficient. That was his teammate Zeke. He was insanely efficient. He was second behind Aaron Jones in yards per carry for anybody with over 150 attempts, and he had 5.2 yards per carry. And he was first among all running backs with 40-plus targets and yards per reception at 9.5. Second in yards per carry, first in yards per reception. It's really hard to beat that efficiency, especially when the volume is going to go up. Does he maintain those numbers this year? Probably not as the lead back, especially with the increasing volume. But is it all of a sudden going to drop off the face of the earth? No. He's proved he's efficient. He's going to remain efficient. He just might not be at the top of the top, right? I mean, he comes down a little bit. He's still going to be pretty darn good. So as long as Dallas doesn't make a crazy move, and what I mean by a crazy move is trading for Jonathan Taylor, signing Dalvin Cook, he'll be just fine. Even if they bring back Zeke, even if they bring in a Leonard Fournette, Tony Pollard is by far and away so much better than they are that it would not dampen my expectations on him too much. I'd probably still keep him in my top 10. So he is a must draft at his current ADP. This next guy, James Conner, is maybe the most disrespected player in fantasy football right now. Maybe the most disrespected player. I'm going to repeat that again. Because over the last 2 years, top 10 in points per game among running backs. Last year, I averaged 15.6 fantasy points per game. Lucas and Alex Caruso did a great job, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse too much on this. Earlier this week in our podcast, go check it out. I'll put it right up here in the corner so that you can click on it and go listen to it. It's a fantastic listen. But the first thing, so I'm going to steal some stuff from them. Lucas brought this up. Do not tell me that the Cardinals are going to be bad this year. They were 4-13 last year. They were bad last year. He averaged 15.6 fantasy points per game. Second, don't say, I'm worried about Kyler Murray missing time. James Conner is better without Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has missed 8 games over the last 2 seasons. In those 8 games, James Conner averaged 22.5 fantasy points per game. That would have been good enough for RB1 in 2020 and RB1 in 2021. I'm going to shout out Alex Trusso again. That was his stat. He put that out there. I am taking that from him, borrowing it from him. Thank you, Alex. But these are some absolutely wild numbers. Just insane numbers. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, but Cameron, he's going to get hurt. All running backs get hurt. All of them. And you're going to say, well, I'm going to draft Isaiah Pacheco. He feels safer to me. Okay. So you want a guy who probably will play all 17 games, actually probably won't play all 17 games and average you 12 fantasy points a game? Or James Conner, who, you know what, maybe he does play 13 fantasy points per game. Or not 13 fantasy points per game. Plays 13 games. But he's going to average 16 points per game. As my RB3, I'm going to take the guy who, you know what, if he's out, I know not to play him. I don't have to rely on him necessarily. But I'm going to take the guy with that crazy upside who could go out and win me a week. I just, as an RB3, he takes your team from maybe being mediocre to, if he plays all 17 games, you have one of the best backfields you could possibly ask for. And finally, we've got our favorite late round baller, Antonio Gibson. And I just want to point this out. I know I mentioned it quickly at the beginning of this video. If you haven't noticed, we've tried to give you a guy in Tony Pollard in the first, second round, give you Jamir Gibbs 3rd and 4th, Joe Mixon between the 5th and 6th, James Conner in the 7th and 8th, and now Antonio Gibson in the 9th and 10th. So you have guys who target along the way. Oh, shoot, I missed out on Tony Pollard. Well, now I can look for Gibbs. I can look for Mixon. I can look for, so you can have a plan in the back of your head of running backs you should target along the way in your draft. Gibson would obviously be the latter part of those areas, like I said. And the reason we're pretty optimistic is because of the offensive coordinator that he just brought in. We know he has the talent when he gets the ball in his hands. It's just, can he get the ball in his hands in space? When he runs between the tackles, not a great player. When he gets the ball in his space, he can house call it at any point. His new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, these last 3 seasons, the Kansas City running back room as a whole has seen at least 100 targets. On this team, Gibson is the clear receiving back. Brian Robinson doesn't really catch the ball at all. McKissick is gone. Gibson could easily see 60 to 70 targets last year. This year he saw 58 last year. He had 150 carries, over 900 total yards, and he was a top 30 back with only 5 touchdowns. So he's not this touchdown reliant guy. If we see small improvements in every single area, which I think Eric Bieniemy can bring him, we could easily see a bump in touchdown numbers that would push him to top 24 status. Now, don't hear me when I'm not saying, oh no, he's going to be the next Jerick McKinnon. He's going to see 9 receiving touchdowns in like 10 games. Not what I'm saying, but he could easily go from 2 receiving touchdowns to 5. That bumps him up into the top 24 range, which is pretty good for a guy with a running back 34 price tag. And then that's not even to mention, if Brian Robinson misses any time at all, we've seen what Gibson can do. He was the running back 13 in 2021. Blows my mind. Didn't remember that either. I'm sure you didn't. But he does have that potential. All right, before we go, I'm going to shamelessly plug the Fantasy Football Fellas Draft Guide one more time because we put in so much work for it for you guys. You can find it at fellasdraftguide.com or in our link tree. And if you want to win your league, you need to get this draft guide because we're updating it once a week. We've got our full big boards. We've got full stats on every single player broken down by positions, flex rankings, big boards, all of it so that you can see it all in one place. But guys, that wraps up another video. Make sure that you're coming back next week to check in or to tune into the running backs to avoid and the wide receivers that you must be drafting. Catch you guys later. Deuces.